And we'll just go along the panel here. I'm not going to read out something about all of these guys because you've got it in your program. You don't want me there, do you? Frankie J guy, yeah. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, are these on? Oh, yeah, okay. I'm Frankie, she, her. Under the rainbow flag, I identify as bisexual. And is that all you really want? Pass it along?
Whatever you want.
That'll do for now. You'll learn more as, I guess, questions get answered.
Do you want to hand back to Annie and she can do a little
Sure.
intro for herself too?
Kia ora koutou, ko Annie Joss tuku ingoa, rhymes with boss. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm an old dyke. Came out in 1985.
B, we have B, he, him, and B was the young person who started this whole kaupapa about 18 months ago, so we're super grateful. And you know the little movie that's running out in the foyer explaining the terms, B put that together for us. And also made these lovely name tags along the front of the table here. And then we have Alistair. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Alistair, he, they pronouns, and I identify as pansexual.
Thanks, Alistair. Leo?
Hey, I'm Leo, he, him, and I identify as trans.
Thanks, Leo. Rachel?
Hi, I'm Rachel, she, her, and I'm the mum that started this off.
Thanks, Rachel.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko tipene o hau, he uri o hau no te eketu me te roroa, I rungi te rohi o te hokianga whakapau karakia. I just want to thank our kaumātua and queer there for your whakatau today and your karakia and everyone for being here today, along with my fellow panellists as well. I am tipene and I am takatapui and I identify as they, them.
Kia ora, Tipene.
Yeah, hi, I'm Steve. I use he, him pronouns. I'm Rachel's husband and B's dad. So I consider myself a rainbow ally. So while I'm straight and cisgendered, which means I identify as the gender that I was assigned at birth, I support and affirm the LGBTQIA plus community.
Kia ora, Steve. Bjorn, would you like to do a little intro?
Yeah, I just want to check if you can hear me okay, because it sounds a bit underwatery here. But
we can hear you
kia ora.
Fine.
Oh, sweet. Awesome. Cool. Kia ora. My name is Bjorn. I identify with queer, sort of with the queer label. My pronouns are he, they. Yeah, I'm really excited to be zooming in, so thank you for having me.
It is an absolute pleasure to have you here, and I'm so grateful that you took the time out of your super busy schedule to join us for a while today. Thanks, Bjorn.
No problem.
Okay, what happened with these questions is that over the last few months we've been asking our group, and we have some youth sitting here with us today who have been part of this group for some time, and we have others who are not able to be here today for lots of different reasons. There's school exams, there are activities on that they've been signed up for a long time ago, and someone left us earlier this year to move towns, so we don't have as many of the youth here who have been part of creating these questions, but what we did was we all took votes on all the questions around what we thought were the most important questions. So we're going to start with some of those that rated high up, but we've also been given some questions today which I'd like to pop in there. So it's going to be very organic and fluid, and it's like a conversation. So if at any time you want to say something, just get our attention. Now, Tashama's going to be my ears as well because I'm deaf, I wear hearing aids and I lip read, so I struggle with you being so far away to hear where the sound is coming from. So if I just ignore you, yell at me, okay?
And if you have a question, just wave or something and I'll let you over.
Okay, so we're going to start with the first question on the list. This was the one that got the most votes. Is there any choice in being queer? Who would like to start with answering that one? Bjorn, would you like to start answering that one?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, I think the simple answer is no, not really. It is kind of part of your identity. The choice is in, I suppose, how you choose to define, and that should be respected regardless of who you are. Yeah. Does anyone want to elaborate on that? Or
I think someone needs to elaborate on that. I'm remembering something someone said the other day when we were chatting about this, and it was so profound to me.
I'll jump in.
Go.
When our child came out to us and said that they were trans, I mistakenly said, well, you've made this choice. And he said to me, Mum, why would I make this choice? Why would I choose to do something that's so hard when I could be satisfied with as I am? And that was what defined. I hadn't thought of it that way before.
Bjorn, the other day you said, do you choose to be straight? Or something like that. Do we choose to be straight? So we don't choose to be straight, we just either are or we're not, I suppose. It's not really a choice.
yeah, I think in sort of the society we live in, it's sort of heterosexual, sort of other words escape me. But sort of being your identity aligning with your gender and your sexuality aligning with heterosexual is your sort of assumed default. And so as a kind of a queer person, it just essentially means that you don't necessarily align with the binary that's been sort of that we've been socialized into. So I think it's queer doesn't really align with that, or even a rejection of that. And I think people naturally don't align with the sort of social constructs that we have created as a society. Even heterosexual straight people don't always fit into the norms of what gender is and the sort of expectations that we feel gender and sexuality should align with. So I think it's definitely such a fluid construct, and now we're starting to kind of unravel that and figure out where the sort of limits and kind of edges are of it. But I think like you only have to look back at history and see how fluid our kind of construct and perception of gender are, and it's just so different and such. So sorry, I'm straight off the question, but no, there isn't really any choice. It's just something we are of us, and this, yeah.
Thank you. Does anyone want to add to that?
I'll stop. Sorry.
I just wanted to add that the short answer is no, but we can all choose to act on the feelings that we have, and sexual orientation cannot be considered a conscious choice. That can voluntarily be changed. So, yeah, no, that's the answer.
Okay, so is there any choice in being queer? The answer is clearly no. Thank you.
When do people typically realise they are LGBTQIA+, or what age is too young to know?
There is really no age that is too young to know. I've worked with whānau whose children are clearly experiencing or expressing gender different to what they're assigned at birth, as young as 1, 2, you know, and that's not set in concrete, obviously, that can change. But yeah, I think suppressing or oppressing any gender expression at any time is not okay.
Okay, thank you. Now, this is something that has been part of my learning, and someone's actually asked this question today. I was going to pop this in here, but I'm actually just going to read this question. If girls dress as boys and do boy things, does that mean they're trans? Can you still be a girl? What's the difference? Frankie, I'm going to ask you to address this one.
Okay, I'll address it in, I guess, hopefully one part, and then the other part, either the gentleman to my left or further down the road can sort of address the other side of it. But I grew up very tomboy. You know, I guess it just, you know what, wearing guys' clothes makes me feel good. Like, I like the style of them. I like the way they look on me. You know, I do a lot of boy things. I build. I, you know, can change tires. I chainsaw. Played with boy games and guns. But nothing, despite actually being told when I was younger at school, oh, you should just have a sex change. You obviously want to be a boy. And I was like, but I don't. And it's not like I look in the mirror and go, oh, this is not the right body for me. Like, I'm quite happy. I like the fact that excuse any of this, but I have boobs. Like, I mean, that's a part of me. I'm a girl. And I just happen to dress not in the heteronormative way that girls tend to dress. But as for, you know, being trans, hopefully one of our trans people on the table can address what's different between me dressing as a boy and acting like a boy and them actually, they are a boy. B or Leo?
Annie would like to say something.
Just to be clear, gender expression is not the same as gender identity. Yeah. It's that simple, really.
B, would you like to talk to that?
When I was little, I would always wear pink and little plastic high heels that you get for those 5-year-olds. So I wasn't like obviously trans like so many stories you hear. I don't know where I'm going with this. But no matter how you dress, it doesn't change your gender or who you are. Nothing what you do changes it either. You can't always tell.
Thanks, B. Leo, would you like to speak to that, or Alistair?
Yeah, more on what B said. Like, I would always wear girly things, and I loved pink. You know, I didn't really realize I wasn't a girl until I was like 12 or 13, and then all throughout that, it didn't really change anything. It was just the clothes that I liked to wear were different. And I still like the color pink. It's a great color. And just, I don't know, heteronormative norms change things, and they don't really mean anything, but society thinks they do.
Can I just ask you a question? Because I come from the dark ages. My name's Judy Suter. Now, Alistair, had you thought about being maybe a lesbian rather than going through trans? Seeing as you like pink.
Well, I was never really like fully attracted to just women, so lesbian wouldn't fit anyways. If I was cis, like I like everyone, I'm pan, you know, it wouldn't change anything. And yeah. Yep, just me.
Yeah. May I say something? Sorry, I'm trying to figure out what I wrote because I'm just watching. So, hello. Yeah, but I think it's making sure that there is a definite differentiation between gender and sexuality, because gender is kind of your identity and what you choose or what you feel like you are, and then sexuality is who you're attracted to. So we need to make sure those are quite, I think, separate categories in some of these discussions and answers. Because yes, some of them kind of come in as a whole, and they do all contribute to our identity in various aspects. But identifying with a label of like lesbian or gay, you can be trans or non-binary and identify with a specific sexuality as well. So I think that's something worth saying.
I think one of the things that, as I say, I come from the Dark Ages, and we started off with just LGB. Then they had trans, then they had I, and then they had A, and, it goes on and on. So what we're doing is putting people into little boxes.
And I think... Oh.
No, sorry, I just wanted to go back and give Leo an opportunity to say what he wanted to say before, and then we'll come back to that, because I think that there's a lot in all of that. So let's keep the conversation going, but can we just let Leo say what he wanted to say before?
I think I've forgotten most of it, I think, by now. As someone who's been around the coming out a few times, I've actually come out 3 times. Came out as a lesbian at one point, bisexual and trans. So I think that there's not really a certain point that you have to know by. And I think it's really important that people should know that no matter what age you are, that your feelings are valid. No one can tell you that your feelings aren't true and real based on your age, because they're not inside your head. So I just feel like that's pretty important.
A gentleman in the audience would like to ask a question.
I just wanted to respond to the lady from the Dark Ages. Was it man, sorry? Or whatever it is, but I just think that the use of the term box is something that would define you're placing on somebody else usually, like you're putting somebody in a box. Whereas it's yourself that's talking about yourself. It's not derogatory because that's what you are. That's how you feel you are anyway. And so it's a box if you're putting it on somebody else, but it's you. It's you. I guess.
Can I jump in?
Rachel.
Yeah. I identify as a woman. I feel God created me as that. But I'm not, as you see me today, I'm all dressed up, but this is weird. This isn't me. I'm steel-toed boots, I'm jeans, I'm grubby shirts, give me a chainsaw. Give me the outdoor chores, not the inside ones, and stuff like that. And society tells us that that isn't what a woman is. And a woman should be doing specific chores and should be dressing in skirts and dresses and lipsticks. But I don't identify that way. I'm jeans, I'm t-shirts and stuff. So I don't think that clothes denote gender.
And I think that's a really honest insight there. Thanks, Rachel. But can we go back to Bjorn? You were going to say something around the labels, I think, the boxes. Did you want to go back to that, or?
I think it's a way of acknowledging people's existence. It's as we become more aware of the kind of different I suppose minorities or different groups of people associated within sort of maybe other minorities or other groups of people, it's really important to, or maybe not important, but in our society, we feel it's important to be able to put labels on things and to acknowledge people. So this is why, particularly with the, I suppose, the LGBTQIA plus sort of why letters keep getting added is because we kind of become aware, I suppose, of much of anything, and want to acknowledge groups of people who for a really long time have been erased and been sort of ignored and swept under the rug and not acknowledged by society. So that's why, because it's fortunately we're in a really incredible country where we can be really open with our identity. But you look at kind of other countries, and I always like to put it into context of there are places where I physically wouldn't travel because I would be at danger of being attacked or even killed. So I think it's really important that we do acknowledge people and do really celebrate who they are and respect that, because that's a really big part of making change and of kind of creating acceptance and understanding and keeping that discussion going, I think.
Can I just give you a little bit of my experience of life? I came out at 14. I ran away from home at 16. I joined the Navy at 18. That was the best thing I ever did. But I only lasted 4 years in there before they caught up with me. And that was because I had a very close friend who was an officer. But I have come out of there. I've lived in a very straight society all my life. I've always been gay. I've always presented as myself. I've always worn pants, even though I shouldn't be wearing pants in certain jobs that I have. But I did. And I have always said, I don't care what you are, who you are, what you think, whatever. I'm me. You take me or you don't. If you don't like me, I don't care. You can push off, you know. But this is the living from through the 1950s, when I'm probably old enough to be your great-grandmother, some of you here. But be yourself. Whoever you are, whatever you are, no label, be yourself.
Thank you, Judy. That's exactly what we want our young people to feel, is sure enough to be themselves. Bjorn and Maria.
Can you tell Bjorn it's Mrs. Halliday?
Bjorn, it's Mrs. Halliday in the audience, speaking now.
Oh, Mrs. Halliday, hello. I'm sorry I can't see you, but kia ora.
Coming back here, thank you for sharing, because I used to teach Bjorn at the high school.
Bjorn, can you hear?
Can you hear me, Bjorn? He can always.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Good, huh? Okay, Bjorn, is that fine? I just want to ask, because obviously I know you from school, and you were fabulous. What could we do different? Like, what can we do different, you know, for these young people who are struggling to feel accepted, to express themselves, to be who they are? I mean, we're saying be who you are and upping that, and that's brilliant. But as a group, as a culture within the school, or in society, but I'm just going to look at the school for now, what would have made it easier for you, Bjorn? I mean, we just loved you anyway, but what would have made it easier?
That's a really, really great question. Yeah, like I think checking up on people sometimes and making sure they're okay if people are like obviously different, and it's making it's making spaces for people to feel safe, and definitely I was really lucky in some aspects that a lot of people at the school were really accepting and were really understanding of who I was and just let me exist. And I am really grateful for that. But like I found out the other day that it was a whole conversation that the head of staff had to have whether I was allowed to continue wearing like high heels at school. And if it was too much my expression of being visible, I suppose. So I think in terms of, sorry, I'm trying to answer it cohesively and sort of blotting around the point, I think. But yeah, making sure that people have a safe space and have a even just seeing people as people and being like, hey, are you okay? Like maybe you're having a tough time, or like making sure that if it does look like that maybe bullying is happening, or sort of even I think in the rehearsal we talked about having like resources and literature around that people can see themselves in, and that open discussions around diversity, maybe not specifically targeting any kind of specific people, but making sure that we have racial diversity, we have different genders and sexualities expressed within like the text we're learning, so we're educating everyone. And because I think it's this thing of also we aren't always the problem. Sometimes it's the society we're in, and so it's making sure that because children can be harsh, and I think making sure that people are educated and like we're having those discussions with maybe the people who have been bullies or haven't been understanding of what these other kids are going through, and opening up the discussions that way. Does anyone else have anything to add?
I have something to add. If you...
Yeah, Frankie's got something to say, and I also would like to ask Annie to speak to this.
So there's some really good stuff going on in schools. Basically, though, what we want to do is be getting in at that year one level, really pushing for compulsory, comprehensive sexuality and gender education in schools. And this doesn't look like year one's learning, you know, anything about sexuality, but year one's learning that, you know, and seeing resources like Bjorn said, that, you know, maybe a book that Jane has two mums is in the, you know, in the school, in the classroom, etc. So what we want actually is that kind of education starting at that level, so that by the time they get to secondary level, the attitudes and values are in place already. And it's not even a notion to these children by that age that being queer is an issue at all. What we want to eliminate is, you know, it shouldn't be a matter of tolerance, it should be a matter of not even an issue. That's where we want to go. Now, other schools are doing great things in this space. I think it's really, really important to have a really good leadership structure among the students in schools who take the lead in calling out microaggressions as they see them. Those get documented and followed up every time. You know, it's not okay for queer people to be walking around in a playground where they're constantly hearing it's so gay. You know, that is not okay, and schools tolerate that. And it is not our youth that are the issue or have mental illness. It is actually society that has mental illness. So let's get in young and start teaching those attitudes and values that we need moving forward.
And as much as anything, it's even like having like potential for non-gendered bathrooms, and just having sort of areas where it's not, or if certain kids want to play sport, like maybe, like I feel like there's so many different areas within the education system where, or maybe not the education system, but within sort of our society, which are so gendered and so stereotyped in that way. And we need to acknowledge the diversity in, like, whether it is for LGBTQIA plus people or for POC, Pacifica and Māori communities. Like it's all making sure that minorities are acknowledged within spaces, I think.
So the more we have these conversations and the more we do this work with the community, the more everything becomes normal, or nothing is normal, because what is normal? That's why we're here. So thanks, Bjorn, Rachel, or Tepene. Maybe you speak because you're part of the queer community, and then Rachel and Steve can speak to that.
Yeah, one of the challenges that I faced, I'll say, but I just want to pay homage to those who have laid paving stones for us today, particularly those, there's many, but for those in the room, Judy, I really enjoyed your kōrerō, and I applaud you for the strength that you've had to allow us and our generation and those to come to have hopefully as much strength as you. And Annie, thank you so much for the mahi that you've done, and I really applaud you too. In terms of the box thing too, Judy, I just wanted to say that it may seem as if we're classifying people in a box, but the generation these days, some of them are so sure about who they are that they love identifying, and so it's quite liberating having all these different letters. They can identify rather than being suppressed for all the generations before. This generation now, they're just happy to say, I am who I am, this is who I am, wave flags around and have those things to celebrate who they are. So I understand your perspective, but the younger generation now, they love this sort of stuff. Waving flags and being who they are, it's really cool. So a challenge that I've faced is, I'm going to say, being Māori and being non-binary, so I don't adhere to either masculine or feminine. Growing up Māori, I was sometimes unable to know where my place was in society, because even in the Māori culture, although previously we were quite fluid with everything, even with kapa haka, there's like haka, and then there's like, so male and female, so I never knew where I fitted in a lot of things, so that was my challenge. How are you?
Kia ora, thank you, Tipene, and thank you also for shouting out to those who have paved the way for this community.
I didn't realise that there were going to be many challenges being a Rainbow ally, but the biggest one that has really rocked my world is when we were being loving and supportive and affirming to our trans son that we were asked to step down from service in the church. And subsequently we have since left that particular church. And that's rocked us to our core. I've been a Christian since I was 5, and I was always taught that God was love and that it wasn't my job to judge, but to show Jesus' love to everybody. And to find out that purely by painting seats, that was saying that it was okay to be gay, and therefore I couldn't be serving on the worship team at church because that meant that the church was being labelled that way. And so that's part of our journey that we've had to walk this year, and it's been really, really rough.
Can I just interrupt you and say this, because I was absolutely delighted when I saw us. One of those seats in town nearly drove off the road. Half the people, my God, there's somebody in this town who loves us.
Yeah. Oh, it's so nice to hear. Thank you, Rachel.
That has been a huge challenge. I mean, we'd been serving in that church for 8 years. Had been involved in leadership, and we had told them the journey we were going through. We'd asked for help originally, but it was never an issue until we were tagged on Instagram. And then all of a sudden it was an issue, and that spoke volumes to me about what was actually important. It was the image, from their perspective anyway. And although Rachel and I are sitting here as straight cis people, I spent 3 years of high school being told every day I was gay. I went to an all-boys school in Dunedin, which is a pretty toxic environment to start with, but they decided I was gay, and kids every day telling me that I was gay, to the point where I was, what if they're right and I'm wrong? What if I am? And I went and spoke to my dad, and he said, well, are you attracted to boys? No. Are you attracted to girls? Yeah. Then you're probably not gay. Okay. But that little glimpse of what these guys have gone through every day. As a straight person, I was getting that. How much harder would it be if you knew that people just weren't accepting you and were judging you and looking at you everywhere you went? But that's also what made me realise that you can't talk someone into being gay, so therefore you can't talk someone into being straight. It's not something you can be convinced of by other people. So yeah, it's been a challenging journey, but the people we've met through this, that are sitting at this table and have been involved in this, have just been the most amazing people, and we really do consider them whānau. And our lives are different because of Therese and the people at this table.
It all gets a bit overwhelming, doesn't it? When you hear these stories of people being kicked out of their church or kicked out of roles in their church that they've served for 8 years because they have a transgender child. So much needs to be done. When, you know, the conversation that was started about the medical fraternity, Annie and I had a chat earlier. We need to do something. I'm just not quite sure what, but I got the sense whilst Bjorn was talking that if all of us talk to our GP about how important it is that they recognise those in the LGBTQIA plus community as just being in the LGBTQIA plus community and not having a mental illness. Would they stop and listen if all of us said something? Just next time you go to the doctor, maybe just mention you came here and we just realised that there's not enough help out there for our community. And you guys need to listen up and you guys need to understand. And if you don't understand, then go and find out what resources there are available. Because Annie was telling me earlier, there are resources available for the GPs.
Yeah, definitely. So the trans community in particular has some pretty unique health needs, obviously, that are quite different to the non-trans community. And as a result, they shouldn't have to, trans people shouldn't have to leave their towns to get gender-affirming healthcare. So I know, for instance, there's a couple of medical practices in whangarei where there's some really passionate GPs who want to be doing this work, who are upskilling themselves in this space so that people don't have to leave whangarei to get that. Let's, see what you guys can get happening in Kirikiri. It's really important. Even just asking your GP, I'm just wondering what this practice does in regards to gender-affirming healthcare. How are you going with that?
Can I
Yeah,
jump in
and, being queer, being takatapui is not a mental illness.
I'd just like to give a shout out to our doctors. When B came out to our doctors as being trans, they asked, what is your preferred name and what is your gender that you would like? And they addressed B as B at the doctors and address him as male and use male pronouns. And so we were super...
I think we can name a doctor like that, don't you?
Broadway Health in Kaikoai.
Sorry, I just have to say this because I'm an activist at heart, but how low is the bar that we have to give a shout out to someone actually calling someone their preferred name and preferred gender?
True.
Like,
Exactly.
how low is that bar?
Maybe
Right?
call it a challenge to see what other doctors, we can find and add to our list.
There's work to be done, absolutely. It is 5 o'clock or 3 minutes to 5. I think we could go on happily for a little bit. What do you guys think? I was going to have some forms and get you to give us some feedback, but it hasn't happened. Can we just have some feedback now? First of all, can we just Big mihi to this lot. And actually, big mihi to this lot.